Hello again. As promised, I'm going to do some examples here real quick, and then I'll talk about sums, and then that'll be it for arithmetic and geometric day. So determine if they're arithmetic. If so, find a formula for the nth term. This is a classic, easy test question for me to write, so I'll keep an eye on it. Looks like 2 to 2.5 is plus a half, plus a half, plus, yeah, it looks like this is arithmetic. Yes, arithmetic. And I would say that A1, the first term, is 2. And the common difference is 1/2 or 0.5, either way. So combining these things with the formula I had before for the nth term, I would say A sub n. Remember, the formula was this. A sub n is A1 plus n minus 1 times D, which is 2 plus n minus 1 times a half. So this is 1/2 n minus a half. So it's 1/2 n. 2 minus 1/2 is 3/2. So from my perspective, this is the correct answer to that question. I like to do it like this because then I can just plug in values for n and get the answer. I don't have to worry about doing any more math here. So I recommend that that's how you do that. So same thing here. Minus 3, minus 3, minus 3. Yeah, it's like minus 3. So now I have A1 is 17. And the common difference now, I would say, is -3. It's important that the negative is in there. If you don't do that, then your formula is going to be wrong at the end. And this leads to A sub n. I'm going to use the same formula I used up here. A1 is 17 plus n minus 1 times -3. So this is -3n. Then -1 times 3 is 3 plus 17 is 20, positive 20. You can always check these one or two numbers, see if they work. When n is 1, this is -3 plus 20 is 17. When n is 2, this is -6 plus 20, which is 14, and so on and so forth. I think that this is good. And here's our answer. And lastly, for this particular page, we got, this looks like this looks kind of like it's arithmetic because the difference between three, this is like 3, 3, 3, 3, but the negatives throw it off. Difference here, you like add 9, and then you subtract 15, and then you add 21, and then you subtract 27. So this is not arithmetic. When the differences, when you don't have a common difference, when you add or subtract something different each time, it is not arithmetic. So don't get confused by the negatives. Just know that you got to have the D has to be common, it has to be the same each time. So here's one that says a geometric sequence. So it tells me this is geometric, so I know it is. It says to find the fifth term. Okay, so A1 is 4. A2 is 20. Looks like I'm multiplying by 5 each time. A3 is 100. A4 is 5 times 100, it's 500. And A5 is 5 times 500, which is 2,500. So here's your first 5 terms. So that part is done. Find the formula for the nth term. So the formula for geometric sequences was A1 times R to the n minus 1, where this is the common ratio and this is the first term. Here, A1 is 4. The common ratio, I know it's 5, but just in case you aren't sure, you just divide a term by the one before it. I divided A2 by A1, 20 divided by 4, and I got 5. So now I use this information and I say the nth term is the first term, 4, times 5 to the n minus 1. I can't, this is not, again, I cannot emphasize enough how much this is not equal to 20 to the n minus 1. You cannot multiply the 4 and the 5 here because they are raised. The 5 is raised to a power and the 4 is not raised to a power, or it's raised to a different power. So do not make this mistake. Thank you. All right, one more of these, and then maybe we'll take a little break and I'll come back and I'll do the sums. Okay, this is a good one. I like this. The arithmetic sequence has A4 is 16 and A10 is 46. Find the formula for the nth term in the first 5 terms. So it's a couple ways to do this one. To find the formula for the nth term of an arithmetic sequence, which is what this is, I need to know A1. I need to know what the common difference D is. I need to know this and this. I don't know either of those things yet. So there's a couple ways to do it. One way that I think is pretty straightforward is to like plug these in and you'll get a system of 2 equations, which is going to be pretty easy to solve. So what I'm saying here is I know that A4 is 16. So in this equation, I have A sub n, A1, n, and d. There's like 4 variables. 1, 2, 3, 4. And given A4 is 16, that tells me that when A4 equals 16 tells me that when n is 4, A sub n is 16. So I can use these 2 pieces of information and plug them in here. When A sub n is 16, so 16 equals A1, which I don't know, plus n is 4, so 4 minus 1 times the common difference. So remember, the 2 things I needed, A1 and D, are still in here. And using the same logic, if A10 is 46, that implies that when n is 10, A sub n is 46. So I can write another equation, A sub n, 46, equals A1, which I don't know, plus n minus 1, which in this case is 10 minus 1, times the difference. So this gives me 16 equals A1 plus 3D, and this one here gives me 46 equals A1 plus 9D. So this is a system of 2 equations. The 2 things I don't know in here are A1 and D. So maybe if I subtract the bottom one from the top one, I get 16 minus 46 is negative 30. I get A1 minus A1 is 0. That's why I subtracted them. Then I get 3D minus 9D is negative 6D. So D is then therefore 5. And then you can decide, you can just pick one of these 2 to plug D back into. Maybe I'll plug it into the first one. So 16 equals A1 plus, so 3 times 5. Remember, the common difference I found is 5, so I just plug that in here. 16 equals A1 plus 16 equals A1 plus 15. So A1 is 1. So now I know D is 5, A1 is 1. I can use that to write the answer to the first part, which is find the formula for the nth term. AN equals A1, which is 1, plus n minus 1 times 5. 5 times n is 5n. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. I get 1 minus 5 is minus 4. Let's see if that works for the ones I had. So A4 is 16. 5 times 4 is 20. Minus 4 is 16. A10 is 46. 5 times 10 is 50. Minus 4 is 46. Good, that checks out. And then the last part said find the first 5 terms of the sequence. That shouldn't be that hard because I now know A1 is 1. I know that the common difference is 5. So A2 is 6. A3 is 11. A4 is 16, which I already knew. And A5 is 21. So there's some sample problems worked out for you guys with the nth term tests, and I will do the sums in the next video.